guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over this quick success story that was sent in from a subscriber. That's from a guy, sounds like he's probably in his early 40s, and he's writing and sharing his story how he was able to turn a ever increasingly bad situation with his teenage son into a good relationship with him when he started treating him like a man, started treating him like an adult, give him some leeway, give him some important adult challenges, that type of thing. And what could have turned out really bad turned out to be a good thing. But you're going to see in the story, this guy, he and his wife are a super religious family. Both he and his wife got married when they're like 20 years old, which was crazy, but they did it, they were young, and had a kid later. And then they went on to have 5 more kids over the course of like 10, 14 years after that. 6 kids. Super, obviously very religious. They would do scripture every morning before he went to work, that type of thing. And this guy's working his tail off to provide for a family of 8. And when you have households like that, you have to run a very tight ship, with all the kids and all that. And this son of his definitely got to be who's a rascal as a kid. And then there were a lot of butting heads when he was a teenager. And obviously it was getting kind of bad, but this guy took a different tactic, treated the kid like a man, and things turned out well. Now let me go over here, guys, that to show you guys that for you parents out there, for you fathers in particular, you're going to have difficulties with your kids at some point. You're going to have rebel kids and stuff like that. And if you're too strict with them, it could go the exact opposite how you want it to go. I've known families that were super religious, super strict, and some very sad situations came from the kids when they were rebelling against that. So you got to try to find some balance in the household where if you're too strict, it can go really bad, but you want to be too lenient, and where you have these hellions running around like you do today. And how sometimes you have to switch tactics, and at the end of the day, letting the kid have some space, leeway, let him become his own man is very important. And typically, when it's a boy, independence. Getting his first job, making his own money, his own bank account, his license, that type of thing is very important. Well, it's the same thing with me. So that'd be a good one here, a quick success story. Nothing dramatic about this story, nothing crazy. It's just a good one about a father and a son and how things turned out right with the right applications. Now, before I get into it, I'm going to go over a quick email I got from a subscriber who's 42, and he wanted to know my advice about getting back together with an old flame that he hasn't seen in 25 years. And ordinarily, I would say, no way, get back with an ex. However, in this situation, you'll all be shocked to see what my answer is, given the circumstances. And hear me out. This guy says, hello, SSM. I'm writing you because I need some advice. A former love has come back into my life. I'll keep it as brief as I can. Here goes. When I was 16 years old, I had fallen in love with a classmate. I'll call her Sarah. Well, we were all that type at least once in our lives, guy. We fell in love when we were in high school with some girl that we would probably forget the next week. Sarah was from Ireland. We both hit it off almost immediately. We were each other's first kisses, first dates, and we were both each other's first time. We took each other's virginity. Dude, you banged the foreign exchange student. You're a legend. We were almost always around each other at school and in our free time. A year later, at 17 years old, we were forced to break up as her family was moving back to Dublin. Well, that sucks. You had a really good thing going. That sucks. I was devastated. I felt like the world was coming to an end. Well, clearly the world didn't come to an end, but I've been there. Watching that plane leave was like watching a part of my heart being ripped away. I'm now 42 years old, and I learned that Sarah had moved back to my city and is working as a personal trainer at a local gym. Hey, how about that? I visited that gym and saw her for the first time in 25 years. I was so happy to see her, and we spent a whole evening talking. But this has brought back old feelings of attachment and a possible spark of nostalgia and love. I would really appreciate your advice and the advice of the community. Thank you. Well, bro, for the first time ever, I'm going to say give an old flame a shot. If you were dating and hooking up, had a good thing going on in high school when you're 17 years old, and the only reason you broke up is because your family moved back to Ireland, then I have no problem. Then you tested the waters, you were talking, having a good time, and meet up for a drink. In fact, since she was your girl from the past, you can feed her a little bit, have some appetizers, and catch up. See if you guys still have anything in common, see if you still connect. You may, after an hour, walk away from there realizing you got nothing in common anymore, and you're just happy to see, a gal that you had a good thing going with when you're in high school, and that's that. Or there may be some chemistry still there, and I say then if there's chemistry, go for the kiss afterwards and date her. But what I want you to do is I want you to remember everything you've learned from me and all the videos you've watched and all the other channels like mine you watch, so you don't make a lot of mistakes as the guys make. Because I caution you that you start to think that this is some kind of fairy tale or movie where, you and the girlfriend, they were destined to be together, got, split apart when you're 17 because she had to move back to her home country, and now fate has made you see each other 25 years later. You know what I'm getting with this. And you start acting all goo-goo gaga and ridiculous, and you fuck up a good thing, a potentially good thing. Just treat her like any other gal that you just started dating with and just see where it goes. That's all I say, Now, ordinarily, if you had a girlfriend and it ended, there's a reason for that, and don't waste your time going back. But in this situation, I say go for it. Just don't rush things. Take your time. Learn from the things you learned in this channel. Learn from any other mistakes you made with relationships, and see what happens. End of story. And that's what I think, and I'm sure a lot of guys watching this that do dating and relationships would agree with. This ain't the dating channel. I ain't a dating coach, but I have done plenty of relationships, and I can give solid advice. So I say go for it. See what happens. So good luck. Okay, on to the main story about the guy and his son. This guy says here, hello SSM. The story really isn't that exciting. It's just about my struggles and accomplishments with raising my son. He says, my wife and I married during Christmas break when I was a junior in college. Smack! Why? Why on earth would you get married in college? Now, I know from reading your story, you're a religious guy, and obviously are and was in the past, and so is your wife or girlfriend at the time, but there's no rush. At least wait till you graduate, for goodness sake, so you can have a job and provide. And I don't want to hear that the Lord will provide. I've heard that before. I'll come back to that in a moment. 9 months and a week later, our oldest son was born. Why did you have a kid when you're still in college? Unless it was an accident, unless you slipped up. And I'm guessing a couple of religious kids probably weren't hooking up, so it was on purpose. During my senior year, we lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment. I would go to class for civil engineering while my wife stayed home and babysat for a couple women who were in college too. The first months can be rather challenging. I need the rest for school, so my wife would get up in all hours of the night during the school week and either nurse, change, or prepare a bottle for the kid. I would feed or change the baby when I could, but school had to take priority. You know how much easier it would have been with school if you didn't have that baby? If you didn't get married? Now, if you got married because you got pregnant, okay, you're religious folks, I get that. But still, good Lord, you could have waited a couple of years. After graduation, we moved for work. As a 1-year-old, Henry was pretty adventurous. As soon as he figured out how to walk, he would take off running until he collided with something. He would crawl into the kitchen and pull everything out of the cupboards that he could reach. It was not uncommon to see all the pots and pans on the floor, and Henry was just grinning like he accomplished something. So not only are you guys so young and inexperienced, you got that kid who's a little adventurer. He's a little rascal. And he's probably that kid who would do things that you just want to pull your hair out and scream, but you also have to laugh because he's such a rascal, one of those. One day, we had put him down for a nap. My wife and I are playing games on the computer, and we hear this thud. Sure enough, he just figured out how to get out of the crib on his own. A few seconds later, he comes out with a big grin on his old face. For the first time, I picked him up and gave him a light swat in the butt and put him back for a nap. Yeah, you're like, cut that shit out, son. I remember the shock and rejected face that little 18-month-old gave me when I scolded him. Well, at this point, you gotta lay down the law with Junior. Fast forward about a decade and 4 more siblings. So by 30 years old, give or take, now you have 5 kids. So I gotta ask. I know I got a lot of religious folks watching me, and I respect that, but that many kids, that's one heck of a burden. Both emotionally, mentally, and in financially. So is it because you truly want that, or because your culture or religion pushes that and pushes it so young? I really like to know. I get life's a challenge and all that, but one doesn't have to put themselves through so much turmoil to, I think, make the Lord happy, if you will. And I don't mean any disrespect, but good Lord, if you had a couple kids, there you go, and it'd be a lot easier for you and the wife and the kids because you got more money to spread around with the 2 kids opposed to 5. My I'm from a second marriage. My dad, I got to tell this story real quick for the religious folks. My dad my dad was born in 1922. He was in World War II. And he's 26 years older than my mother before he passed away. And with his first wife, he had like 5 kids, classic baby boomer kids, that type of thing, after the war. And his second son grew up to be very religious. And when his second son, my half-brother, was 19, he got married against my dad's wishes and also had a kid around the same time as this guy. And my dad, of course, being the father, and he was a doctor and a Marine, then transferred to the Navy, he basically asked the basic questions: how are you going to provide for this kid, blah, blah, blah. And my brother said, the Lord will provide. To which point my dad, who had a great sense of humor and was a wise ass, said, oh, so that's my new name? In other words, my dad, yes, was providing. And it was tough, and the guy struggled. But you know what? That brother of mine, who I've seen a few times throughout my life, good guy, I think he had like 6, 7 kids and adopted another one. And money was always tight. And all that time, he and the wife stayed together, and they were happy, and they all were a loving family, but money was tight, and they struggled, and my dad had to lend them money many times. So, I got to wonder sometimes. And I know, there's the old, you got to have the struggle, and, but I've always wondered that. And I know I'm going on here, but I'm glad it worked out for you. But, wow, that's a lot of pressure for a young couple. Anyway, he says here, my wife is still a stay-at-home mom, and I'm working my butt off trying to keep a roof over our heads. This is what I'm talking about, all the stress and anxiety, all the kids, and financially. My wife and I are doing our best to instill good character into our now 5 kids, and number 6 kid comes about 4 years later. 5 kids wasn't enough, got to have a 6th one? When the Lord said, go forth and multiply, I think in the book of Genesis, well, we got 8 billion people on the planet now, and I know this was a while ago, so, we're okay kid-wise. We attend church weekly. We still don't have a TV in our home, and do morning scripture study before I leave for work. Like I told you, this guy is a very religious family. I spend as much time available as is reasonable with my wife and family. Life seems to be good, but with my job, I'm working 60-plus hours. It's very taxing on me, and I'm tired when I get home. When there is discipline issues, I'm probably harsher than I should be. After 60 hours a week, and you're tired and stressed and having 6 kids and all that, I'd be a bit, it'd be easy to get worked up too. But again, I have to ask, that's a lot of pressure, my man. I mean, I'm sure you love your kids and you say you'd never change anything, but I've always wondered why people put themselves in these situations. Because they want to do it, or because religion, culture, their family, all that rolled into one. But regardless, you're obviously a good father. Try your best. It was about this time that my son and I started being a little adversarial towards each other. Teenager. He is about 12 years old and starts back talking to me, or he will talk bad about me to his younger siblings. That shit ain't allowed. All this feeds into a terrible loop of anger, resentment, harsh punishments, and attitude. I eventually get a better job with better hours, but still our relationship is strained. Well, it's very likely that you're a very religious household, and typically what happens to teenagers is they start to rebel. This is a problem that parents in households like this face, where it's so strict and typically a very religious household that the kids get into trouble rebelling. And I've known kids that have gotten into drugs and a lot of other bad things. Some actually OD. One kid I knew was a household kind of like this, a ton of kids, very strict, very religious, and he got into heroin and OD'd in college because it was just so strict, and he was losing it. Gotta be careful. By the time Henry is 15 years old, our conflict had reached its peak. He's a smart kid, but was an arrogant know-it-all. By this time, we had a few bad conflicts with each other. Not coming to blows, but anything short of it. Henry would love to antagonize me and get my temper going, and I would fall for it. My wife sometimes put herself in between us to play referee. Fathers and sons, you and your boy probably have a lot in common. That's probably why you butt heads. About this time, I was ready to throw the kid out to where I don't know, and after several discussions with my wife about the situation, we decided we needed to change the situation. I stopped forcing him up for scripture study, and my wife and I decided to try not to using any form of corporal punishment whatsoever. Well, he's 15 yeyears old. There shouldn't be any, and the whole corporal punishment is a very debatable subject, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot in the comment section. But my dad, I got the belt many times as a kid. and let me tell you, I deserved it, because I was a little smart ass even as a kid. By about 10 years, by 9 years old, they're not doing that anymore. They found other tactics, like grounding me from TV and video games and stuff like that. That worked. The belt, my butt got so used to the lashes, it's like, whatever, knock yourself out, Indiana Jones. My dad had that belt, whoosh, you know. I got a lash for every year so 9 years old, I got 9 lashes. 7 years old, I got 7 lashes. This is a regular routine. But take away my video games, the Nintendo, and other things, oh, then I behaved. But yeah, you're too strict with the scripture and all that stuff, but that's probably making your son crazy. It says here, I got a newer car and offered him my old car on the condition that he helps me rebuild the engine. Aha, some father and son bonding time. Although getting him to help me with the engine was like pulling teeth, he did help me some. It was therapeutic to be able to work with him on a project, rather than argue with him about the stuff I don't even care about. Unfortunately, we never got that car going. I broke off a seized water pump bolt, and my heart wasn't into repairing it when he didn't really want to be out there. I just towed it into the wrecking yard. Henry started working this summer. He was 16 years old. Aha, good for him. He's getting some independence. That's key. I told him that I will buy a pickup for him and he can take it when he leaves if he pays me half of what I paid. We wrote up a simple contract between us. As I started to treat him as an adult, our relationship greatly improved. There you go. That's how things improved with me and my dad. I got 16 years. He was very strict. I started getting some independence at 16. My first job was Domino's Pizza, making $4.50 an hour in 1994. Minimum wage. That was a quarter more than minimum wage in Pennsylvania at the time. But I had some independence, and eventually got a better part-time job. And I got my license. The more independent I felt, my parents would treat me like a man, like an adult, and things got better. And I was not forced to go to freaking church and Sunday school and all that other stuff all the time. Henry's a type that loves to excel and earn the praise of others. He didn't get straight A's, but he got 4 AP classes and was on the debate team. Did well running cross country, and all the while working at least 20 hours for his last 2 years of high school. Great. This is his independence, becoming a man. Now he's in the Navy, learning to be a nuclear technician to maintain one of the reactors on an aircraft carrier. Although we didn't always get along, I'm very proud of him as a father and glad my wife and I decided to have him those many years ago. Well, there you go. It's a quick story, but it goes to show it's a good story about a father and the son and going through the tough years and all that. Even as a little baby, he was independent and breaking through barriers. But I like the fact that you switch tactics. Stop being so strict with the scripture every morning. Probably stop making him go to church every week, or maybe you didn't. And treating him like a man and giving him some space to breathe and all that. And he's working part-time, bringing in money. This is something I understand very well. And now, obviously, he's a man. He's his own man. You have a good relationship with him. That's wonderful. That's what I like to hear, guys. So, guys, like I said in the beginning, you have different families, different backgrounds, religion, culture. But if you, as a parent, start stifling your kids, smothering them, and you're super strict, it could backfire. And clearly it was. So I'm glad that you switched tactics, and stuff like that, and things are good. But I still have to question the choice of having that many kids. But if you're happy and you worked it through and you got a good thing going, great. We need a lot more loving families out there. If it was in another parallel universe, if I, had children, believe me, there'd be no more than 2. That's all I could freaking handle. And frankly, that's just me. But anyhow, good story here. It's a quick one, but I like to hear. And again, this is nothing outrageous about this story or crazy or revenge. It's just a story about a typical Joe that had a bunch of kids and the struggles, which a lot of guys can identify with him. Things are good with this kid now. I like to share these from time to time. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.